Hey class, so I'm going to show you how to draw objects with the correct proportion and in the correct location in relation to each other by using a method that is called sighting and measuring. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'm in a position where I'm not going to be moving around. You want to make sure that you stay in the same place throughout. So, first things first, before I do anything or take any measurements, I'm going to go down to my paper and do a very loose gestural drawing. So, just really quick, just to kind of capture the basic shapes. So, notice how I'm using the side of my pencil. It's because I want to keep the lines as light as possible because they'll end up being drawn over or erased later. So this is just really, really loose, okay? Just to give you a sense of what you want your composition to be like, where it's going to be on the paper. We're not measuring anything yet. So I'm looking at the object now. I'm going to use that white cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my pencil out like this. See that? So first I'm going to measure the length. It doesn't matter. You can measure the length or the width first, whichever is easier for you. And I'm going to put my thumb right at the bottom of the cup. So the pencil tip is touching the top, the bottom is touching my thumb. Now, without moving my thumb, I'm going to turn it and I'm going to measure the widest part of the width to compare it. So, what I'm getting is that it's slightly smaller than the length. Probably, I would say 3/4. So, the width is about 3/4 the size of the height. Okay? See that? See where the right side of that cup isn't going right to my thumb? It's stopping before the thumb. All right, so let's say I decide on my drawing, this is how wide I want my cup to be. All right, and that's just based on that loose drawing I'm doing. Now, all I need to do is figure out how high this needs to be. So to figure that out, if this is my width, and the width is 3/4 of the height, I'm gonna use my pencil again to measure what I've decided the width to be, okay? So I'm going to measure it, put my thumb there, it's about there, and I'm going to turn it, I'm going to place my thumb right at the bottom of that line, and I know that the height is going to be about 1/4 larger than the width. So probably what I approximated was correct. I'm going to draw another plumb line there. And remember, we're measuring the widest part of the drawing. So I'm just going to do a box, and when I measured it, I did measure it with the handle. I'll add the handle on later. So roughly, I'm making a box. Now I know that my cup will fit inside that box. We're not going to worry about putting the details of the cup in yet, okay? We're just going to make the boxes. All right. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the height of that cup, and I'm going to see how many times that height fits into this guy, all right? Just to see how tall it is. I'm looking at the bottom, and the bottom of that green thing pretty much lines up with the bottom of the cup. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to draw a straight plumb line so that pretty much I know where the bottom of the green thing is going to go. And it's going to line up with this guy. All right, so let's see how many of those cups fits into that green, I think it's a candle holder. All right, so 1, 2, and about 1/2. So it's about 2.5 of this cup's height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the height of my drawing of the cup, move it over to here. So we've got 1, want to make sure I line it up. 2 and a half. So about half of that would be about here. Okay, so now I know that this is where the bottom is and that's where the top is. Okay, I'm going to measure the widest part of my cup again, and I'm going to see how big that space is between those two objects. So I would say that space is about half of the widest part of the cup, right? Yeah, it's about half. Okay, so go down here, measure that again, mark it, and then I'm gonna scooch this over, put my thumb on the edge of the left part of the cup, and then about halfway is about here. So, I happen to have this in the right place. My approximations were correct. So, this is where the right side is gonna go. And now we have to determine, we have one more line to draw for the box, right? So we need to see how wide it is. So I'm going to measure the cup again to compare. So there's the top. And they're about equal in width. So again, width of the cup, move over here, make a little mark. And wow, it's really hard to draw when I'm looking through my phone, but all right, so there's my rough box, okay? Now is the last part, the yellow pitcher. That's the last thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that cup again, measure the length of it, and I'm gonna see how many times it fits into that pitcher. But before I do that, I'm gonna look at where the bottom of that pitcher hits that cup, and it's a little bit higher than the bottom of the cup, right? So I'm just going to draw a plumb line about here, kind of eyeballing it. Okay, so now let's see how many times the length of this cup will fit into that yellow pitcher. All right, so I'm measuring the height of the cup, moving it over to the bottom of the pitcher. That's where my thumb is. So 1, 2, and 3/4 about. So go down here again, measure the height of the cup, put my thumb where the bottom of the pitcher is going to be, where I drew that plumb line. So there's 1, 2, and 3/4 of this length. So about here, I would say. Let's make a mark right there. Okay. So now I can see that I actually had my pitcher a little too low, right? So I'm going to draw a plumb line indicating where the top of that pitcher should hit. And remember, I'm not counting the handle. All right, so now what I need to do is figure out how wide it's going to be. And I can see that the right side of the pitcher is just peeking out past the cup, but it's pretty much in line with this part of the cup. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to draw a vertical plumb line right up against that cup, because the widest part of that pitcher lines up with this part of the cup. Okay? And if I drew a plumb line straight from that side of the pitcher down, let's see. So this side of the pitcher is going to be about right there, right? I'm going to use my pencil to create an imaginary line, and I'm going to see that it goes into that green candle holder about up to here. So I'm going to approximate that. Looks like it's about here. Okay? So, let me back up a little so you guys can see. All right. Okay, so there are all my plumb lines. Everything should fit into those boxes perfectly. Now it's just a matter of filling in those boxes. All right? So, let's start with the cup. The very top of that cup is a really narrow ellipse. So I'm gonna go down here, and what did I tell you guys about ellipses? Remember? They always come to a rounded edge right here. It's never pointed. And if you take a ruler and draw a straight line through that, then you can copy this side and compare it to that side. And if these two negative shapes match each other, then it's symmetrical. Okay, so that's the top of the cup. And I'm gonna use my pencil as an imaginary line again. Okay. So I'm going to go down here and draw another plumb line on both sides. Okay. So, all right. So now what I can do is I can look at this negative space and this negative space and see if they match. It's pretty close. Okay, and I'm also noticing that the bottom of that cup is a little tiny bit curved. So I'm going to go down here and curve that a little bit more. This is really hard, drawing with one hand without holding my paper. All right,